The golden era of the WWF was a glorious time, an age when larger-than-life legends built the very foundation of professional wrestling. But alongside those iconic superstars, there were also many who simply couldn't rise above their own limitations. Despite having the looks, potential, or even the right opportunities, they stumbled and faded away amid a sea of shining stars. Some became laughingstocks because of bizarre gimmicks, while others were forever branded as glorious losers. Today, we're diving into the 10 worst wrestlers of WWF's golden era, the ones history prefers to forget. Let's get started. Wrestling Sphere, go! Number 10. The Red Rooster. Before stepping foot in the WWF, Terry Taylor was considered one of the most promising wrestlers of the 1980s. He had competed in Mid-South Wrestling and the NWA, where Taylor showcased solid in-ring ability, strong technical skills, and a knack for keeping the audience engaged with his performances. With a clean-cut look, decent mic skills, and plenty of experience, many believed that once he joined the WWF in 1988, Terry Taylor would soon become Vince McMahon's next breakout star. Unfortunately, things went downhill in the worst possible way. Right after signing his contract, Vince handed Taylor a brand new gimmick, the Red Rooster. The character was a cocky wrestler with dyed red hair who genuinely believed he was special, constantly nodding his head and strutting around like an actual rooster. At first, Taylor thought it was just a temporary role. But the WWF turned the character into a full-blown joke on television, constantly putting him in embarrassing segments meant to make him look ridiculous. They even paired him with the legendary manager Bobby, the Brain Heenan, only to have Heenan mock and treat him like a fool. Taylor did his best to make the gimmick work, but the harder he tried, the more the audience laughed at him. His exaggerated chicken strut, silly cock-a-doodle-doo sounds, and awkward in-ring behavior completely overshadowed his real wrestling skills. The image of Terry Taylor as a skilled, technical wrestler was replaced by the sight of a goofy, weak, Red Rooster, who kept losing match after match. His career in the WWF spiraled quickly. Instead of being featured in major matches or interesting storylines, the Red Rooster became a lower-card act, often used to make other stars like Mr. Perfect and the Big Boss Man look stronger. He became the textbook example of how one bad gimmick can destroy the future of a talented wrestler. After leaving the WWF in the early 1990s, Terry Taylor tried to rebuild his career in WCW, but the stain of the Red Rooster gimmick followed him for years. Although he later found success as a respected backstage producer in a wrestling industry, fans still remember him as the guy with bright red hair, strutting around the ring and crowing like a rooster, one of the worst and most humiliating gimmicks in WWF history. Number 9. The Brooklyn Brawler. In WWF history, no one embodied the image of a true, professional jobber quite like the Brooklyn Brawler, whose real name is Steve Lombardi. He wasn't someone who lacked passion or effort, quite the opposite. Lombardi was one of the most dedicated, hard-working men in the company, remaining loyal for decades. Yet during the golden era of the WWF, he became almost a symbol of defeat itself. Before becoming the Brooklyn Brawler, Lombardi wrestled under his real name in the early 1980s. He frequently appeared on WWF television but almost always ended up being pinned. Vince McMahon recognized Lombardi's commitment and willingness to take on any role, so he gave him a new character, a tough, scrappy guy from Brooklyn who wore torn clothes, smoked cigarettes, and acted like a street thug. On paper, the idea seemed interesting. In reality, it didn't turn out that way. The Brooklyn Brawler debuted as an ally of Bobby, the Brain Heenan, in his feud with the Red Rooster. Although that gave Lombardi a spot in a major storyline, he was never portrayed as a serious or dangerous competitor. Instead, he continued his familiar pattern, showing up only to lose. No matter who the opponent was, the Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, or Jake, the Snake Roberts, the Brooklyn Brawler was always the one left lying on the mat. Still, what made Steve Lombardi stand out was that fans actually remembered him, even without victories. He had his own unique way of moving, expressive reactions, and incredible selling ability that made his opponents look stronger. Many top stars later admitted they enjoyed working with Brawler because he made them shine in the ring. Although he never won titles or had a glorious moment, the Brooklyn Brawler remains a nostalgic part of WWF's golden era. He represented the hard-working, behind-the-scenes wrestlers who sacrificed their own success to elevate others. In the eyes of fans, he'll forever be the scruffy, gritty fighter who lost so often. He became a legend of losing. Number 8. Outback Jack. In the mid-1980s, as the Crocodile Dundee craze swept the world, the WWF decided to cash in on the trend by creating a rugged, Australian-style character, and thus, Outback Jack was born. With a seemingly fresh and exciting concept, Vince McMahon hoped this new persona would offer something unique to American audiences. But things didn't go as planned. His real name was Peter Stillsbury, and the truth was, Outback Jack didn't have much wrestling experience before joining the WWF. Despite his large frame and tough outdoorsy appearance that fit the Aussie Bushman image perfectly, he completely lacked in-ring skills. Jack's moves were slow, clumsy, and poorly coordinated, leaving fans bored from the very start. WWF heavily promoted him before his debut, even producing elaborate video packages showing Outback Jack wandering through the desert, driving a jeep, and talking to wild animals, all to present him as a strong, simple, and rugged man. But when he finally appeared on TV, the illusion quickly shattered. Outback Jack showed no charisma whatsoever. The audience mocked him, and his matches were criticized as dull and lifeless. Worse yet, Jack lacked the most vital ingredient in pro wrestling, charisma. He couldn't connect with the crowd, had no presence, and failed to create any memorable moments. Over time, WWF began to feature him less and less, and within just over a year, the Outback Jack character disappeared completely. Outback Jack's failure clearly showed how WWF sometimes focused too heavily on gimmicks and appearances while neglecting the core of what makes a star, in-ring ability and genuine personality. What was once envisioned as Australia's next big hero quickly turned into one of the most disappointing and forgettable gimmicks of WWF's golden era. Number 7. The Warlord. During the WWF's golden era, a time filled with larger-than-life personalities, the Warlord stood out for one reason: his incredible physique. With a body seemingly carved from steel, bulging muscles, and a cold warrior-like stare, he looked as if he had stepped straight out of a comic book. Unfortunately, everything that made him stand out stopped at his appearance. The Warlord, real name Terry Shapinski, was once seen as a potential powerhouse in professional wrestling. Standing 6 feet 5 inches, 1.95 meters, and weighing over 285 pounds, 130 kilograms, he had the exact look Vince McMahon loved. But when the bell rang, everything fell apart. His movements were stiff, his reactions slow, and he had little to no ability to tell a story in the ring. The Warlord became the textbook example of a muscles-over-skill wrestler. WWF tried hard to make him a star, but every attempt failed. He was paired with a Barbarian to form the Powers of Pain, a team that looked intimidating but lacked chemistry. Their matches were slow, heavy, and unimaginative, leaving fans bored rather than excited. When WWF split them up and pushed Warlord as a singles competitor, his weaknesses became even more obvious. He had no mic skills, no emotional range, and couldn't connect with the crowd. He simply stood there, flexing like a moving statue. Even though he was put into short feuds with big names like the British Bulldog and Hulk Hogan, the Warlord never rose above the role of a secondary opponent. Fans quickly realized he couldn't deliver memorable moments in the ring. Today, the Warlord is remembered not for his accomplishments or titles, but as a symbol of an era when WWF was obsessed with bodybuilders and forgot what truly mattered: skill and personality. A chiseled body might impress at first glance, but without substance, the audience moves on. And that's the sad legacy the Warlord left behind in the golden era of WWF. Number 6. Iron Mike Sharpe. Throughout the 1980s, the height of the WWF's golden era, Iron Mike Sharpe was a name fans saw constantly on their TV screens. Unfortunately, he wasn't known for winning matches. Sharpe didn't earn fame through spectacular victories or powerful moves, but rather for his endless streak of losses. Still, it wasn't just his defeats that made him memorable. It was his bizarre personality and one-of-a-kind style. Calling himself Canada's greatest athlete, Mike Sharpe entered the WWF with sky-high confidence. He had a solid physique, a booming voice, and the arrogant attitude of a classic old-school heel. But once the match began, that confidence disappeared. Sharpe was often dominated by his opponents, reacting slowly and rarely delivering any impactful offense. However, he had one trademark feature: his constant grunts, yells, and loud groans that echoed throughout the arena every time he got hit. His over-the-top screams made him impossible to ignore. Some fans found it hilarious, others found it annoying, but everyone remembered him. The WWF used him as a loyal jobber, someone whose role was to make the real stars look stronger. And in that job, Sharp excelled. Although he never won titles or had headline matches, Iron Mike Sharp became a small but memorable part of WWF history. He appeared everywhere, on TV shows, at live events, and in countless matches, always wearing his trademark forearm brace and exaggerated facial expressions. Through sheer dedication, he turned losing into an art form. Today, when fans look back on the most entertaining failures of the golden era, Iron Mike Sharp's name always comes up. He was never a star or a legend, but he embodied the spirit of the hard-working jobber, the unsung hero who made others shine, even while living forever in the shadows. Number 5. Koko B. Ware. During the golden era of WWF, when giants like Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior dominated the spotlight, there were also those who existed mainly to make others look good. And Koko B. Ware was the perfect example. With his brightly dyed hair, glittering jackets, and his colorful parrot Frankie perched on his shoulder, Koko entered the arena with a big smile and infectious energy. But once the bell rang, that energy rarely translated into success. Before joining the WWF in 1986, Koko B. Ware had been a popular performer in Memphis, known for his high energy and fighting spirit. But when he arrived in the land of the giants, he was rebranded as more of a comedic act, a cheerful, undersized entertainer with a bird as his gimmick. Fans enjoyed his fun entrance and upbeat personality, but few ever saw him as a serious threat in the ring. Throughout his WWF career, Koko rarely scored notable victories over top stars. He was regularly defeated by names like Big Boss Man, Ted DiBiase, and Rick Rude. While he had decent agility and could pull off a few flashy aerial moves, he never managed to climb beyond the lower mid-card. Still, it's hard to deny the joy he brought to WWF during that era. Kids loved him, crowds smiled whenever his music hit, and his colorful presence added a touch of light-hearted fun to the show. In 2009, Koko B. Ware was surprisingly inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, a decision that sparked plenty of debate. But in terms of dedication and spirit, Koko earned his place as a symbol of pure entertainment. In an age where strength and championships define success, Koko B. Ware chose to make people smile instead. And that might just be the one thing he did perfectly. Number 4. Jim Powers. Jim Powers perfectly embodies the idea of wasted potential during WWF's golden era. He had the physique, the strength, and the work ethic, but he lacked the one thing that could have made him a star: charisma and the ability to connect with the audience. Despite being viewed as a promising talent when he first joined WWF, Powers never managed to escape the shadows of the company's top stars. He started gaining attention when he teamed up with Paul Roma to form the Young Stallions, a duo that showed flashes of promise, especially in their intense matches against the Hart Foundation and the Islanders. Their youthful energy and powerful in-ring style made many believe they could become the next breakout tag team in WWF. Unfortunately, their momentum quickly faded due to poor creative direction and lack of company support. When the team split, Jim Powers' solo career went nowhere. Without strong mic skills or a standout persona, he became known as an enhancement talent, a guy who gave his all in the ring but rarely, if ever, won. On shows like WWF Superstars and Wrestling Challenge, he was often used to make other stars look good. Fans saw him frequently, but almost always on the losing end. Still, Powers earned respect behind the scenes for his professionalism and dedication. He wasn't famous, didn't win titles, but always delivered a solid performance every time he stepped into the ring. Jim Powers may never have become a legend, but he represents the unsung heroes, the wrestlers who quietly helped build the greatness of WWF, even as their own names faded with time. Number 3. The Genius. Lanny Poffo, the younger brother of the legendary Macho Man, Randy Savage, is living proof that star power doesn't always run in the family. He entered WWF at a time when the company was booming, yet instead of creating a legacy of his own, he became best known for portraying a bizarre character, the Genius. A self-proclaimed intellectual who recited poetry and flaunted his arrogance to the point of absurdity. At first, Poffo appeared as a cheerful babyface, smiling and handing out poems to the audience. His wholesome image, however, didn't fit in a world where strength, charisma, and intensity ruled. Soon after, WWF repackaged him as the Genius, an egotistical, poetry-spouting know-it-all who wore glittering robes, spoke slowly and dramatically, and constantly praised himself before matches. Fans laughed at him, but rarely took him seriously. Inside the ring, the problem became even clearer. The genius lacked the strength, speed, and storytelling ability to make fans believe he was a legitimate threat. Most of his matches followed the same formula: a few flashy moves, some arrogant showboating, and then a predictable loss. Even during his stint as Mr. Perfect's manager, he never escaped the label of a comedic character rather than a credible performer. To be fair, Lanny Poffo had charm and showmanship, but what he lacked was genuine audience connection. People saw him as filler entertainment, not a must-see act. After a few years of repeating the same gimmick, the genius lost relevance and quietly faded from the spotlight. Today, when fans remember Lanny Poffo, they don't recall his victories or classic matches. They remember the arrogant poet, a man who tried to stand out, but was ultimately buried by his own gimmick. Number 2. SD Jones. When it comes to some of the most likable faces of WWF's golden era, SD, Special Delivery Jones, will always be near the top of the list. He wasn't a winner in the traditional sense, nor did he have a standout gimmick, but he became beloved for his positivity, perseverance, and the way he connected with fans, even as a constant underdog. Jones joined WWF in the late 1970s and quickly became a familiar presence on television. With his solid build, friendly smile, and physical in-ring style, he seemed destined for success. But WWF never saw him as a true star. Instead, he was used as the guy others had to beat on their way up, a dependable, stepping-stone opponent. Jones faced many of the era's greats, from Big John Studd and Greg Valentine to King Kong Bundy, but almost always ended up on the mat. His most famous career moment actually came from a loss. At WrestleMania I, 1985, he faced King Kong Bundy and was defeated in just seconds. The quick squash became part of WWF history, often replayed in highlight reels as one of the shortest matches ever. Ironically, that loss made his name unforgettable. What made SD Jones respected wasn't his record, but his attitude. Always punctual, always professional, he gave everything he had even when he knew victory was out of reach. Fans admired him not because he won, but because he never stopped trying. Looking back, SD, Special Delivery, Jones stands as a symbol of the hard-working, good-hearted wrestlers who made WWF's colorful world possible. He may never have held gold, but he left behind something just as valuable: the admiration of fans who saw the heart of a true competitor. Number 1. Duke Dries. As WWF transitioned from the end of its golden era into the new generation, fans began witnessing a flood of bizarre gimmicks, and Duke Dries was one of the clearest examples. He wasn't lacking in strength or skill, but he was saddled with a character that made audiences laugh for all the wrong reasons: a garbage man who carried a metal trash can as his trademark weapon. Mike Dries, his real name, was actually a capable wrestler, big, strong, and professional in every sense. But at that time, WWF was obsessed with creating cartoonish, everyday characters to appeal to younger viewers. Thus, the Dumpster was born, a sanitation worker stepping into the ring to clean up his opponents. On paper, it sounded quirky and fun. In reality, it made him look ridiculous in a world filled with warriors, superheroes, and cold-blooded villains. Dries debuted in 1994 with plenty of confidence and scored a few minor victories on televised shows. His cheerful attitude even earned him some support from younger fans. But it didn't last long. Audiences quickly grew tired of his repetitive, one-dimensional character. With no real storylines or character depth, he became trapped in the role of the trash man who can wrestle, a gimmick nobody could take seriously for long. In the ring, Dries was solid and technically sound, but WWF at the time was overflowing with larger-than-life stars like Razor Ramon, Diesel, and Bret Hart, men who commanded attention and embodied intensity. Compared to them, Duke, the Dumpster Dries, felt more like a mid-card comedy act than a legitimate contender. He had a few chances to prove himself but never came close to breaking into the main event scene. By 1996, WWF quietly ended the experiment, and Dries left the company without fanfare. Looking back, Duke, the Dumpster Dries, wasn't a bad wrestler, far from it. But he stands as a perfect example of how the wrong gimmick can completely derail a promising career. He worked hard, gave his best every night, but when fans remember the trash can more than the man himself, that's when you know the career has hit a dead end. Although they never left behind a glorious legacy, Each name on this list remains a fascinating part of WWF's history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the next great stories from wrestling sphere.